So if I'm eating more than 70 grams of carbs each day, and yet I'm in a ketogenic state, am I doing keto? Or how is it possible that children can be in a ketogenic state when they're not doing any special kind of diet? Well, in fact, being in a ketogenic state is the natural state of the body. And so if you're metabolically healthy, you will get into a ketogenic state as long as the carbohydrates that you're eating are low enough for your body to put you in that state because it's the state the body wants to be in. Also, anytime we fast, we will go into a state where our body is using fat for fuel, which is the definition of being in a ketogenic state. This is different than the fact that the keto diet is defined as eating 50 grams of carbs or less. And I'll say that doctors have taken this idea a step further and they've said if you are doing a keto diet because you have any weight to lose, any metabolic issues, including insulin resistance, then in fact, you're probably going to need to be 20 grams of carbs or less, which is why you keep hearing keto defined as 20 grams of carbs or less, because doctors say that's what you'll actually need to do to overcome the metabolic problems and get your body into a ketogenic state, which means a state where you're burning fat for fuel. A question that I get asked often: once I've lost the weight, can I just go back to eating 30, 40, up to 50 grams of carbs since that's the true limit of keto? As long as I don't go over, will I stay in a ketogenic state? And to answer this question, I want to give an analogy. If I buy a brand new car and throughout the use of that car, I put the manufacturer's recommended gas and the manufacturer's recommended replacement parts and any other fluids that need to go into that vehicle, I always replace it with the manufacturer's recommendation. Over the course of the life of that car, there might be an occasion where, even if it happened once a year, I pull up at my typical gas station and they don't have the manufacturer's recommended gas, and I need to put in the cheaper gas this one time, but it only happens once a year. Chances are very good that my car will still perform appropriately and it will still last the duration of the time that the manufacturer would expect it to. It's going to make it that warranty without any big issues because I did all the things that they recommended that I did. Compared to, I buy the same car, but rather than following the manufacturer's recommendations, I put the cheapest gas, I put the cheapest replacement parts, I put the cheapest oils and fluids that I need to put in the vehicle. Chances are very good that the engine of this vehicle is going to get gummed up and have problems. Now, when the engine gets gummed up and have problems, when I go to visit the repair center to figure out how are we going to solve this, very likely you're going to tell me one of two things. They're going to say either, oh, we can take the engine apart, clean up all the problems, put the engine back together, and then moving forward, you do what the manufacturer recommended. But they might also tell me, well, we'll drain all the fluids out of this vehicle and we'll take out any parts that are not manufactured and put those back in. And then from this point forward, put the best quality gas, the best quality oils and fluids and other things in your vehicle. And that's going to help to clean up the poor quality that you had in before. And over time, your vehicle will eventually get to a standard where it's better. So in scenario number one, that'd be like if when it was time for my child to start eating solids, I fed my child only healthy, so protein and fat, and the small amount of carbohydrate that allowed the child to stay in a ketogenic state right from the get-go. And as the child grows, I made sure that that's what was happening most of the time. And if on the odd occasion the child had a small amount of extra, it didn't matter because the next day they wouldn't have that and they're back in their ketogenic state. Compared to having the same child grow up on a very regular basis having too much carbohydrate. Eventually, they will become insulin resistant. Eventually, they will have metabolic damage. And eventually, they would need to go on a ketogenic diet to reset their body and get back into a healthy situation. And that need to reset their body would then mean that moving forward, they might not be able to be in a ketogenic state if they eat more than 20 grams of carb because their body had damage. So they need to keep themselves lower. I know for myself, my damage was so much that I actually need to keep myself at under 18 in order to keep myself in a ketogenic state. And because I know that, and I want to make sure that I'm successful, often I keep myself under 10. When we consider that over the last 30, 40, 50 years, depending on how old you are when you're watching this video, we've been overeating the sugar, overeating carbohydrates. It's scary when we think about the fact that most of us feel fine. But then, do we really feel fine? One of the biggest problems with metabolic internal damage is that you can't see it. And it kind of creeps up on you slowly, slowly over the course of years, which means that you feel fine because it's happening so slowly until you don't feel good. And it's like a punch that you get. And all of a sudden, you're sick. All of a sudden, you're pre-diabetic and diabetic. And being pre-diabetic versus not being pre-diabetic when you're walking around in your everyday doesn't feel that different because it takes so long for you to get there. Even if there are physiological things happening that are uncomfortable, we get used to them. Think about the fact that we don't realize that we're winded climbing the stairs or winded chasing our toddler around until we have the toddler to chase, because most of us don't chase other people's children around, until we climb some stairs, because most of us take the elevator. So we wouldn't know until we try to do this activity that we can't do this activity without being like, I can't do it anymore. And even for the weight, you'd think you'd notice that you gained weight, but you don't. You look at yourself every day. So you're not going to notice a pound every other month. And I can be the example for this one because I can tell you that I had no clue how much weight I had gained until Pat took a picture of me and I was like, whoa, that's what I look like in other people's eyes? And why would I take a picture of myself? I spend all my time taking pictures of the kids. So I didn't have a clue. Okay, but now I'm getting off topic. Why aren't you in a ketogenic state? It turns out that the average person eats about 350 to 450 grams of carbs every day. So just for clarity, 454 grams of carbs is a pound. And it's easy to do because we're constantly eating processed food, we're constantly eating fast food, and we're constantly eating junk food. You know, like chips and cookies and ice cream, which not one person can tell me that there's value to eating those things on a regular basis. All of these things are high in carbohydrate because sugar is a great preservative. And it also helps with the taste and texture of a lot of the things that we love to eat. There are three critical things that we're going to need to solve because of the amount of sugar that's in our diet. The first one is carbohydrate addiction. Carbohydrates stimulate the same part of your brain as alcohol and other drugs, which then allows the release of neurotransmitters, dopamine, serotonin, that cause you to feel good, but they also cause you to depend on them to feel good, which means if you don't have them, you actually feel withdrawal. By eating high carb foods on a daily basis, by drinking high carb drinks, by sweetening everything, we have access to this dependence causing addictive substance every single day. That means we're feeding our addiction every single day. The solution to this is eating a keto or carnivore lifestyle, because when I take my carbs down to 20 grams or less each day, I'm below the threshold that doctors say is necessary for that release of neurotransmitters to happen, which causes the feel-good hormones to start flowing, right? So I'm taking the addictive part of my food out of the story. And that allows the addiction to the carbohydrates, so the sugars in your life, to subside. The second issue that we need to solve is carbohydrate overload. Carbohydrates are toxic to the body in large amounts, which means that when we eat carbohydrates, since our body strictly regulates them, as soon as we eat them, we've overloaded the body a little bit. So what does our body do? Quickly, it intervenes and starts to use some for energy, and it stores the rest away as fat to neutralize it. When you eat a keto or carnivore diet, your body has an easier time managing the small amount of carbohydrates are coming in because your body uses more than the energy that can be provided by 20 grams worth of carbs. It actually ends up using fat that's stored on your body to make up some of the difference from the carbs you used to eat, which again is very beneficial to you because it helps you to lose weight. The third issue that actually gets solved by eating a keto diet is the fact that carbohydrates block the body's natural build and repair cycle. And this happens because when you eat carbohydrates, we tend to overeat. Because again, we're addicted to the sugar, right? So our body is pushing us to get more, pushing us to get more because it wants that neurotransmitter release. It wants to feel good. But when you eat, processing of food is energy intensive. Repairing and building the body is energy intensive. So my body tends to choose which one it's doing at what point in time. If I constantly eat, my body has to prioritize processing food because once I've eaten it, it needs to be taken care of. And so repairing and building my body gets put on hold. So if I'm constantly eating, I'm blocking my body from repairing itself, which is really important because if my body doesn't repair problematic cells, repair, just living my life, I get damaged. The same way just driving your car, you get damage. It's not because you hit something. The working and turning of things causes damage. Same thing here. But my body does that daily if it can. My body will do it hourly if it can, if I'm not processing food. So we're blocking our body's desire to keep us healthy. Remember, that's the most important thing that your body's focused on, is keeping you healthy. A healthy keto and carnivore diet, and I just realized I'm mentioning carnivore in this, but I hadn't really said that carnivore is just a subset of keto. Whichever way you decide to go, a healthy keto or carnivore diet allows us to eat the amount of energy that my body needs because I'm not chasing carbs, so I'm not overeating, which then means I'm having less time during my day where my body's processing food, which means I have more time during my day where my body can actually build and repair me. By solving these three issues, it's amazing how you're going to improve your health, improve your life. Because when I'm not overeating sugar, my body doesn't have to get rid of the sugar somehow, and its option that it prefers is to store it away as fat. So right away, any weight issues that I have start to get solved because my body can start using the fat that's on board rather than storing energy that I don't need to store. I'm going to build a better quality violet because I'm eating protein and fat more so than I'm filling up on carbohydrate. Protein and fat is what builds my healthy body, which then translates into better functioning internal organs. If my internal organs are functioning better, that means my health is actually better. I'm going to see the results of that. I'm going to have clearer skin. I'm going to have nice nails and nice hair. I'm going to have energy, like I said earlier. I'm going to have less pain, which was the biggest benefit for me. That keeps me on track. That I don't have the pain that I had 4 years ago keeps me on track. Eating healthy keto helps the body to thrive. In order to do that, you need to be committed to eating 20 grams of carbs or less each day. But you can't do that if you're still addicted to sugar. So this video right here is going to help you to get your sugar addiction under control. Click on the link. I'm going to meet you over there.